Good morning, ma'am. Within 5 minutes, we will.
Neha or Shushmita, should we start?
Yes, ma'am. Within 2 minutes, we will start, ma'am. As the
Okay.
participants are joining, ma'am, we will start.
Okay, ma'am.
Good morning to all. I, Miss Neha Mishra, on behalf of Chandrabhan Sharma College, welcome you for the final day of our 1 week online faculty development program on outcome based education organized by IQAC and FDP Committee of Chandrabhan Sharma College in association with Rajiv Gandhi College of Management Studies. As we wrap up this week of learning and professional growth, let us remember the wise word of Nelson Mandela, who said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. We hope that the knowledge and skills gained over the past 5 days will empower you to become change makers in your respective field and make a positive impact in the field of education. Now, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed resource person for the last day, Dr. Farheen Ahmed. Ma'am has explained and share her extensive knowledge on teaching pedagogy with Bloom taxonomy, and we are excited to have her back to share more insights on teaching pedagogy with outcome based education. We are confident that her expertise and experience will enrich our understanding of teaching pedagogy with outcome based education and how it can be benefit our teaching practices. Welcome you, ma'am, and look forward to another insightful session for the day.
Thank you, Neha, ma'am. So I'll take over from here. Jalpa, ma'am, am I allowed to present?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Yes, ma'am, you can. Okay. Yeah, is my screen visible? Can anybody please reply?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes. Okay. So, a very good morning to all of you. We are here for the second day wherein we are talking about teaching pedagogy with respect to outcome-based education. So like yesterday in the session, we basically talked about when with an intent of teaching better to the students, we learned about how you can engage in students with multiple other, how you can plan your lessons well through cognition knowledge matrix. We understood that before going to the class there is an extensive set patterned work that is required by a faculty or a teacher to lay down and have an equal amount of understanding of what is going to be forwarded to the student as a learning. So when it comes to subjects, or whenever we have been allotted a course, I'll just revise to what we discussed yesterday. We basically start with having an understanding of the syllabus, so that you can sectionize the units, sectionize the modules into proper course outcomes. For course outcome making, we learned that in order for you to create course outcome statement, action verbs, that these are the verbs that comes from levels of cognition, whereas the knowledge comes from the content of the unit that you are basically clubbing or you're using to create your course outcome. So these action plus your knowledge combined together gives you a basic course outcome statement. Nevertheless, apart from this, there were two other optional statements, optional criteria that are also available to us while we intend to create course outcome statements. Those were either procedures or either criterias. So if there is specific things mentioned, but since they were optional at many places, these two things does not exist. So in totality or in simplicity of the scenario, action verb and the knowledge has to be mixed together so that you can create an objectified statement for which will be communicated to the students right at the start of the term, while you will be introducing your subject. Alongside, they will be knowing that what kind of skill set they'll be able to manage out once they take up your subject at the end. So in totality, we discussed about this thing yesterday. We did learn about that course outcome statements which belong to a particular subject or a course has to be in sync with something what is called as program outcomes. Now, program outcomes are again the achievable objective statements that are predefined by different accreditation bodies for different programs. Like let's say, we have got NBA, we have got this kind of bodies giving us program outcomes. Similar program outcome statement well defined for engineering college, for engineering programs, for management programs, and likewise for other varied programs. So it has to be in sync, and whatever you attain into your subject has to go and should get amalgamated in the achievement of the PO outcomes for a particular program. Not only that, we also saw that on a larger or an extensive level, each of the programs that a college caters or offers to the students has that the attainments of these programs should get culminated or should be in the same direction of achieving the institutional outcomes, which are nothing but the vision and mission. So having said that, teaching pedagogy is not only subject per se when a teacher takes it into consideration. It is the overall engagement of like as to how we are imbibing teaching, learning, and evaluation all together with the students, such that our own institutes vision and missions are achieved in the long run. So that is what teaching pedagogy understanding, that is why it is important to have better understanding of teaching pedagogy with respect to outcome based education. On that track, I will take you people today to course file. So I did last time when I was talking to you people, I did say that at the end what we have to do is to know a proper documentation. So documentation is basically an evidence of what you have done throughout the term, along with the students? How have you taught them? How they have basically, reciprocated in the same manner? How have you derived them as bright learners or weak learners according to the subject? What have you done with your class, and how have they performed via assessments and evaluation? So all of these things within the, whatever is the term period given to you to a particular semester for any kind of program, throughout this time, everything that a student goes through, or a teacher makes sure that a student goes through, has to be documented. And usually nowadays, because the accreditation is something which has become a mandate to every institute, documentation of these things have become compulsory and mandate. So on that grounds, I'm going to present you the course file with, as in how do we create a particular filing, what is required, what can all be included in the file while you want to submit the total working of how the course has been led to a student. So that's why we are presenting course file with respect to outcome based education today. Now, today's learning outcome will talk basically upon, I would like to touch base upon what is it that can all be included into your course file. So when I say course here, I mean as a subject. So your subject file index, what all things can be included in that. I'm going to talk about course outcome attainment. So when we, yes, last time when we met, we did talk about how to keep on targets for each of your course outcome statements. So when you create course outcome statements, these are objectives. These objectives have to be, targets has to be set based on the based on how, what kind of class you have got as a teacher. So if it is a more of a brighter side, more, a majority of them are to a brighter students, then you, but of course your cognition levels of teaching the similar kind of knowledge will go higher. The moment I say this, your targets will be set up higher, right? And similarly vice versa. So in for those targets, what have we actually attained? So if targets are benchmark, what have we actually attained at the end, post evaluation, post the examination, when internals externals happen? So at that point of time, what we have got, we are going to gauge it, we are going to compare it, and therefore we are going to get course outcome attainments. So we will see its calculation. We will also see how can we correlate the CO, each subject's course outcome statements, with the particular program which is of which it is a part of. So we are going to see that with CO, PO, and PSO mapping. I'm also going to talk about PO and PSO attainment calculation. With in terms of ending the whole thing, we are going to talk about closing the quality loop. Now, when we say that teaching pedagogy, the very intention of including teaching pedagogy, different sort of methodologies in your in the way you teach to your students, it is about giving and acquiring better quality each and every day when you interact with your students. So how do you close that quality loop? We are going to talk on that, and then I'm also going to talk about the annexures. So when we document something on a reality, there will be a lot of add-ons that you would like to present as a specimen copy, as a sample, to prove you that your work is aptly done. It is done in a right direction. So we are going to touch base upon the annexures also. So coming to the course file index, this is what we I have taught. We did talk about till yesterday. We did talk about timetable, syllabus copy. Usually, a course file index starts with a cover page wherein it should have your prescribed timetable, whether it is a lecture timetable, lecture schedule, a tutorial schedule. It should have the course objective. Now, course objectives, where we get this from? Usually, if you are from an affiliated university, the university along with the syllabus copy will give you the course objectives mentioned right above it. So you need to have that mentioned in your course file index. Later on, you need to have the prescribed syllabus. So as it is, the syllabus is there, you just have to take a photocopy of it and put it in your file. Next is your class student list. So every student, every class has a number of student. So you basically need to have their coded roll numbers and their student names aligned. Giving also giving the total number of students totally present in the which makes the total class. Next, we have got is the cognition knowledge exercise matrix, which we did touch base upon yesterday in the yesterday's session. We did learn that how by using cognition and knowledge levels, you can actually scientifically, plan out your lesson plan. And once that kind of exercise is done, well thought exercise is done, you can easily prepare your lesson plan, which can be well communicated to the students right at the start. Then it because you derive lesson plan, it will also help you with having an understanding of the content delivery. When I say mode of content delivery was affiliate lectures, role plays, group discussions. Then there are group, there are different formats of content delivery which has been prescribed by different universities. So taking that into consideration. In fact, if one is from a vocational course, or if it is from a practical course, they do have lab visits and other stuff like that. So what kind of modes are you using for the purpose of delivering on the syllabus content has to also be mentioned. Then comes is our course outcome statements, which we already prepare, and which is already communicated to the students. Then we will talk about, it your course file also need to have course outcome specific learning hours. Like I told you all yesterday, key the moment you devise your course outcome statement along with your lesson plan, using these two, you easily get to understand how many number of hours have you taught a particular course outcome. So that kind of specific detail has to be mentioned in your course file. Today I'm going to talk about COPO mapping matrix. So when we talk about COPO mapping matrix, this is basically with reference to taking each CO statement which you have framed, again revising that for every subject there should not be more than 5 to 6 course outcome statement made. So if you what we have to do basically is that PO statements. What is PO? PO program outcome statements, which are already prescribed by the accreditation bodies for a particular program, must be taken. Each you have to, and what one has to do is you have to take both a particular CEO and a particular PO and gauge the similarities between them. And but of course map their mapping strength. So either if it is you feel that it is mapped to a certain extent, you will write why. If it is not mapping, then you must reflect on no. I will show the specimen copy of the same. Next come is the again using the similar grounds, you can easily derive out program outcome specific learning hour segregation. Again, the moment you have this thing, the number 10 and number 11 in place, you can easily derive out program outcome. So how much number of hours has our subject contributed towards attainment of a particular program outcome? That is reflected in the 12th page of the should reflect in your course file. Next come is your target setting. That is as in how do this is we have already seen. I think in the day three of the FDP of this whole thing, examination with respect to OBE was well captured by Professor Niyati from RGCMS. She did talked about assessment instruments, what kind of how do you map your course outcomes with questions while you prepare different sort of assessments, whether they are class test, whether it is actual question paper. So that is well taken care of. How we actually take care of the mark list, whether both internal and external examinations, course exit response analysis, and grade analysis. So this is something that she has already captured. Today I'm going to talk further about the same. The moment we talk about course outcome attainment, though, this is something for which we have put targets to each of the course outcome. So the objective is that over here is that the course outcome attainment calculation is important for outcome based pedagogy. The moment we say that we are oriented toward outcome based education, outcome means that you have got certain output, and it has to be specifically mentioned and documented. For that we require to calculate, it is compulsory to calculate course outcome attainment. Now course outcome attainment is compared with the set target to identify the gaps or redefine the targets, thus by closing the quality loop. Now, for this, what we require is that for before I go for this calculation, we need to have a duly completed direct assessment table. Now, whenever we say direct assessment table, it is nothing but my mark list of internals and externals both. All sort of examinations that has been taken, well set and done. So basically, our mark list has to be ready before we do our course outcome attainment. And the second thing is that we need to also be ready with our course exit survey analysis. Okay, so when these two things are already there in the hand, and when it is done, when do we basically take up this attainment? Post your semester end examination conduction. So once your final exams are conducted, evaluation is completely done, then the faculty has to sit down and do this calculation. For university papers, what happens is upon university's result declaration, institutes usually get total scores directly. Wahan pe you do not get segregation. So question wise marks you don't get. Hence, there is no means of computing direct attainment for individual course outcomes. For a semester end examination, only for university papers. So here the solution is basically to treat the average marks, whatever they have acquired, as a common attainment for all your COs. But if we talk about something which is completely a college based paper, for those courses, we basic what the weightage of how we attain direct assessment of a CO attainment, which is nothing but X. Here the weightage average of 60% of SEE. Now when we say SEE, it is the external examination or a semester end term examination. So 60% weightage of external examination and 40% weightage of internal examination is taken into consideration in order to acquire direct assessment, direct assessment based CO attainment. Now, the moment I say this 60-40% is basically based on the kind of mark segregation is allotted to your program. So because we basically take care of MBA or MMS. In MBA and in MMS, we have got 60 marks external paper. Therefore, the 60% weightage is given, and 40 marks is completely secured for internals. That's why 40% weightage given to internal evaluation. Similarly, if there is any program which has a weightage of 75-25, the formula is going to change in the likewise manner. So when we adopt that, what we can see here is a specimen copy of basic calculation of a particular college oriented paper. Here are the scores outcomes. SEE, when I say SEE, this is nothing but the external exam, under which there were seven questions, seven or five questions given. The different questions were aligned to different COs, and the kind of class average percentages can be seen here. CIE, whereas CIE is nothing but our internal evaluation criteria, which does acquire, there is attendance, there is active participation, absence, will be posted here. And we basically calculate the average, that is nothing but the X, using the above calculation. So the formula is basically zero point 0.6 of the average of the total plus 0.4 into average of the CIEs. That's how we calculate direct assessment. Now, when I say direct assessment, this is something that exactly is associated to the syllabus of the course that you have taught. Now, this is nothing but of what I think Professor Niyati, has described preferably, that you need to take a course, a survey, course exit survey, so that at the end of the course, when your syllabus get completed, you basically take up a small course outcome based exit survey and ask the students that in their eye, with their perspective, what do they think, how much they have understood of a certain CO. So let's say if there were five COs in this in your subject, you are going to prepare five questions. There will be five CO based questions, and you will basically ask the students, like, on the count of 1 to 5. 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, how much of you think that you have developed the ability for XYZ statement, right? For a course outcome. So that's how we ask questions to students, and based on their learning, their understanding about a particular course outcome, they either answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's how we understand, what is the perspective or how much they have understood a particular course outcome for a course. Similarly, when all of this, the class gives such kind of survey, you need to do analysis, and what you get is the average of all each COs. Now, this average of the course exit survey becomes a part of your indirect assessment, because it is what we have done, we have included subjectivity of the child, of the student, which is basically a learner for a particular course. Okay, so यहाँ पे you will copy the average for course exit analysis table. Now, in order to draw the actual course outcomes attainment, here you need to do x plus y. Now, wherein x is nothing but the direct course outcome attainment, and y is the indirect course outcome attainment. Now, here what you can see is point 0.9, that is 90% of direct assessment is considered, and 10% of indirect assessment is considered. Here again, the discretion is completely in the hands of the institute, of how they are going to, the formulation can again vary between 80 plus 20. Now, this kind of flexibility is given to each institute to come together. In fact, the IQSC of the institute, the IQSC department or the IQSC committee, is basically responsible to sit down and think whether they are going to give weightage to 90% of the for the direct investment, or 80. So this you we one an institute can fluctuate between 90 and 99 is to 1 ratio, or 8 is to 2 ratio for direct and indirect course outcome attainment. So depending on whatever has been come to a position, that must be communicated to various departments for that particular program, and that's how people should do their calculation. The key is that for a particular institute, the formulation for every program must be uniform. So that must be kept into consideration, and this is how we calculate our course outcome attainment. So once you've done that, we come to CO, PO, and PSO mapping. POs are program outcome statement defined and given by accreditation bodies, whereas PSOs are program specific outcomes. Now, these are again flexible statements that can be made by the institute. Many times, what happens is the institute, if they are autonomous in nature, or if they are quite creative in approach of understanding multiple objectives. So just by from what there are about, like, let's say there are about 5 program outcome statements for MMS. So after that, talking about my own institute, we have developed our own PSO1 PSO statement, wherein we wanted to include something, something exclusive, which was not which was not a part of PO. So that is that is how each institute can have their very own unique PSO statements also. Once you have created that, you need to do COPO mapping under your course file. So when you are trying to do that, you basically will be requiring CO statements in hand and PO PSO statements in hand. When this mapping needs to be done before the commencement of the semester, or at the start of the semester. So once course outcomes are finalized, it is important to map it with the PO PSO. A strength of 1, 2, 3 of the mapping is important for calculation of PO or PSO attainment. So it is important in order to understand of how much has one particular subject contributed to the program. It is essential to marry CO and PO together by giving them strengths. So if I feel that my first CO has certain no certain mapping, certain similarity with the first PO given, depending upon my thought process as a teacher, I have full flexibility to give it a strength of 1, 2, or 3. Okay, and again, this cannot be questioned by people, because the moment I say that you are the faculty for a particular course, it means one has to have that much confidence to justify at all levels why targets were set at a particular pace, or why strengths were given at a particular levels. So strength one basically should be mapped to weak mapping, two should be mapped to moderate mapping, and three should be used for strong mapping. And if you feel there is no similarity between a particular CO or a given PO or PSO, then one must just leave it by with a N. That is nothing but no. So any should be used for no mapping or insignificant mapping. Justification for the mapping strength is important to be documented in the mapping section. Guiding principles should be the amount of time which faculty will be sending on specific POs through the course delivery. Number of hours per, no, per CO should also be documented. A sample is shown here. CO-PO mapping. Like first, there are about 5 COs, and we have a sample, no, about 5 POs, and PSO one is developed in our own institute. You see that for the first CO has been aligned with PO1, PO2. Again, the strength levels are no very distinctive, very different to each other. PO3, PO4 is not mapped with CO1. That does mean that every individual course outcome it is not necessary to map it with all the POs. That is why for in a program, or in a in a particular program offered, number of subjects are given so that they can align it, and cohesively you can gain the strength for POs. So that is how one should map your very own course with the program outcome statements. Coming to PO and PSO attainment, here what we require again is your completed CO attainments and the mapping strength. When should you be doing this? The moment you calculate your CO attainment, is that the very moment you can sit down and do this exercise of calculating your PO PSO statements. Now, program outcome statements for all courses should be computed based on CO attainments and mapping strengths. Of each course outcome and program outcome. This PO attainment computation will be used for calculation of the overall program outcome. So what happens? Why is this part very important? Because here again you get certain level of attainment or percentage of attainment, whichever is your institute, whichever you people have arrived at. So at the end, what happens is your academic committee is going to ask for giving away the kind of levels that you have achieved as an information, and that each of the PO attainment from every course will be calculated. The average of it will be derived, for after which you will be getting your PO final PO attainment for a particular batch. So that is how everything should be in sync. The weighted average of all the PO or PSO statements are derived, which later gets converted into level of attainment. Then here this level of attainment range again is prescribed by IQAC, the Internal Quality Assurance Committee, as per the overall institute performance and standards set, which will be uniform across all the courses. The uniform levels of attainment arrived upon all three levels must be represented to derive each PO PSO attainments in terms of levels particularly. So what happens here is that for CO attainment, the targets can be set freely by faculty on his or her own perspective, and the kind no, and but of course the last year's performance for that subject is taken into consideration. Your bright and weak learners is taken into consideration, but for PO attainment, here it gets calculated on the basis of CO attainment, but the targets for PO PSO is again given only by the IQAC. So here you can see this. This is a specimen copy of program outcome attainment statement. It gets automatically calculated if you have got CO attainments in place. This I was talking about this thing, the levels of attainment. So this 1 to 3 level, जो percentage band we can see here, 59, 50 to 59, because in MMS 50% is the minimum criteria to pass. So that's why this band is given. 60 to 79% is band 2, and 80 to 100% is band number Three, this particular band has to be uniform for all the courses belonging to a particular program, and this has to be defined and communicated well before by the IQSC committee to the academic committee, and therefore the academic committee should be, but of course, channelizing they should channelize this particular table format to all the faculties. So this again, this cannot be changed by any faculty. So this comes from the upward communication. Next, we've got is closing the quality loop. Once you have acquired all the attainments, now what to do with these attainments, right? So when you say talk about documentation, it has to start from A and it should complete at Z, right? So with that intention, closing the quality loop is apt because here what you will require calculations of CO attainments, CO target will be required, PO attainments, and COPO mapping is required. So the methodology basically used here is the course outcome attainment should be compared with the targets. So when the moment I compare the attainment with the target, I will either get a gap or I will see whether there is no gap. Okay, at the same point of time, PO, PSO attainment should be compared with PCO, PO mapping. So if the targets are attained, gap will be more than zero. So improvement should be planned to increase the attainment next time. So if the targets are sorry, if it is not attained, then of course gaps will be seen, and you have to make sure that likewise things are done. But if the gaps are met, then again the attainment targets must be enhanced the next time. So if you already achieve your target next year, if you're teaching the similar subject, you have to increase your target to a certain limit. That is why we talked about, when we put CO targets, we also see last year's performance of that particular subject, of how you have taught the students, or how students did in your yesteryear for that particular course. That also becomes a very good base to set right kinds of target in the current academic year. Closing the quality loop will actually give you CO achievement for the current assessment year. Here is what we can see is the sample of CO attainment gap calculation. For that, you require assessment. These assessments are nothing but the actual, which you uh, every class percentage, and these are the targets. So using these things, what you get is the gap. So basically target minus assessment is the gap. So minus 6.9 means you have already achieved it. So anything in minus, anything till zero, it means that you have achieved your target, whereas anything in positives show you that you are still to achieve your target. It means that it requires for you to either change your pedagogy or include a lot of methodologies so that you can acquire this target in the next coming academic year. Uh, so points to remember while you are writing down action plans for improving the course outcome. The moment you get targets, okay, there are two things. If you have achieved the target, the only action that you're going to do next year is to increase the target, to another level. But if it is not achieved, so for that you need to write down your thought process of how will you be improving, what will be your action plan to attain a particular course outcome statements target next year. So action plans proposed must be specific as possible. So basically what does it mean is that we cannot be vague. The statements that we put, it cannot be vague. You cannot write down that I'll be working hard towards achieving it. No, so that will be a completely vague statement. It has to be specific statement when we write action plans. Okay, indicate if any additional resource are required to support your improvement plan. So if you think that you will be requiring a lab session, do write it down. If we think that an expert lecture will do much better for the in terms of acquiring knowledge to the students, you must align that thing. If there is anything extra, if you want to include certain activity, then we need to specify it completely. Indicate if any changes in the lesson plan is required. it must be justified. Avoid vague statements like motivate students, work harder, etc. Later, increase in the CO attainment targets must be done by comparing the target set at the start of the course, and final class average target must be achieved in the end in terms of percentage or in terms of level, whatever your institute has decided. So again, this is a sample showing CO action proposed for bridging the gap or closing the quality loop. So this is again an action table that you have to prepare. So CO1, CO2, CO5s are mentioned. The targets that you have kept is mentioned, and the gaps that you have acquired. So the moment you have targets minus attainment is what you get is gaps. So -2 is again there is no gap left, -4 no gap, -3 no gap. But if we see in CO1 and 4, gaps can be seen. So if this is the gap, a percentage gap that you have got, action proposed to bridge the gap, you have to justify it. What are you going to basically do? So here, let's say, here we have written involve country-based caselets to study the cultural differences and impacts on business operations and design. You have to specifically be, mention what exactly you will do. And in just in case if you have achieved the target, what the only action that you do is increase your target to a certain percentage. So similarly, if you want to understand the gap for PO attainment statement also, similar table can be created, wherein again target minus assessment will give you the gaps. Okay. And for closing the quality loop and understanding the proposed action plan for the same, similar things will be seen. Usually, you will see that in CO attainments, closing the quality loop for CO attainments, majority of the times teachers will get a lot of the gaps. There will be lesser gaps, but when it comes to POPSO for a particular course, the attainment will have actual gaps, and that is completely normal, and that is completely it should be in the similar lines. It should be that way only. So you must actually propose your action plan for bridging the gap. So what you exactly going to do on a on a higher level, so that you can contribute towards your towards performance of the students through your course to the program, must be dealt with. And last, I think, yeah. So and the last is nothing but your annexures. So when we talk about course file making, a lot of supplementation, a lot of additional um, evidence is required. So and in annexure, when we talk about annexure, you are bound to have a photocopy of your attendance sheet. Okay, mark sheets are required. So your mark sheets. Mark sheets may usually it is expected that you have two types of mark sheets, an average marking sheet or and a very good mark sheet. So what is basically expected out of teachers is that when you basically are in the process are in your cap center, wherein you are actually assessing the papers. At that point of time, before submitting the whole paper sets, take two random papers out, get a photocopy of them, because you have to align that thing in your course file. So that is how, because at the end, when people come for specifically for accreditation or any kind of audit happens, and they would want to see ki you are okay, this is the performance of your children, can we see the mark list? So at that point of time, deriving out mark sheets become very no has hasty. So that must be taken care of. Third is question papers and evaluation scheme. So under this thing, you need to have a specimen copy of your assignments question paper. So if we give assignments to them, it has to be made in terms of a question paper. Each of the evaluation has to be CO mapped. So any kind of question, whether it is in the final paper or whether it is in the format of class test or presentation or assignment, it has to be CO mapped. It is very much essential for us to remember this thing. Now, what we do presently is that usually a very basic practice by teachers are that we go to the class and we just tell them, what, write down questions. This is what you have to submit as an assignment. But this is Again, this is very subjective. So to make it a little objective, what you need to do is either use a platform. So usually what we do is we have a G Classroom. We extensively use Google Classroom. There we post our assignments details, how it is expected to be submitted, how the questions are mapped. So everything is well communicated on a certain platform. And while we have to showcase the similar things, we just take a screenshot of the whole screen of the question paper. So it basically acts as an assignment question paper. Class test paper again, photocopy of it must be required. Third is a part which is called as rubrics. Now, when I talk about rubrics, all sort of qualitative assessments that one involves has to have rubrics in place. So when I say that as a teacher, I'm going to take a group presentation is completely subjective in nature. So to bring certain no, objectiveness or in terms of evaluation of the same, in terms of assessment of the same, rubrics are a must. So as teachers, we must remember for all sort of quality assessments that we do in our internals, whether they are group presentation, if you are telling them to do some kind of role play, if you're telling them to do some kind of case studies, all of these things have subjectivity in place for which you have to create a rubrics, and you have to communicate this rubrics on a predefined before a certain duration, and on the similar rubrics which you have prepared. So rubrics are nothing but the basically measurement criterias which has got marks attached, and we basically mark them on this basis. Such kind of rubrics must be devised. Again, this is a work of IQSC department, wherein these people must sit down and devise cohesively common rubrics. Like for example, if you have to have a group presentation, there should be an institute devised rubrics. If a teacher wishes to take up a case study, then the evaluation has to happen using rubrics in place. So coming back again to the course filing of the similar things. So if supposedly I take group presentation, I need to have a specimen copy of the rubrics which has been communicated to the students, and you need to also have a screenshot of the communication. So you must either mail the students, either post it on the G Classroom, or by any means wherein you are showing that you have communicated this rubrics, because this is a very common question by the when any kind of accreditation or audits happen. As in, how have you, this basically also helps you to showcase uh, transparency in terms of assessments. So that is why it is important to keep in as a part of your annexure. Next comes the final question paper that you make, both the sets, and if you're making sets, each set's evaluation scheme must be a part of the annexure. As far as samples are concerned, which becomes a part of the annexure, you need to have a copy of course exit survey format, answer sheets, assignments, presentation samples. So you need to also have of any one or two students assignments which they have submitted, one or two students class test answer sheets which they have submitted, presentation samples. So what we can do is that we can always have a presentation printout taken and then attached again on the similar grounds. The fifth part talks about business intelligence, basic and subject aptitude test. For that, the paper that you have devised, that should be a part. Response sheet of the intelligence test, as in what people have answered, should be there. And at the last, bright and weak students list has to also become a part of your annexure. So this is quite extensive thing which I've just tried to summate it within 1 hour's time. I would, before I go for the question and answer round, I would just like to show you people our course file. Can you see? Can anybody please let me know if you can see my screen?
Yes, yes.
So this is how we make our course choice. Again, this is individual to every institute, how they would want to develop their course file, whether they are using some consultant for preparing the same or whatsoever. So this is basically, we start with the first page, we have our index. Then you have to basically write down the cover page wherein actual signature of that multiple people happens, wherein who, as in who has prepared that particular course file, who has verified that course file, who has approved that course file. Okay. After that, I'm again just taking you through the indexing again. So this is specimen. This is how we post our semester timetable. The course objectives is line. There is a syllabus copy, which talks about, which extensively tells us the learning outcomes, content, and everything as per the prescribed university format. Then we have got a class student list attached. Here we can see that we have created a cognition knowledge matrix. Once you do that, you can easily create your lesson plan. As in, the lesson plan will give you different sort of things, not only the topic but and the number of hours, but it also talks about the content delivery, course outcomes, and cognitions attached. So this is a very summated summary of lesson plan of how it should actually be dealt with. It talks about the content at the moment. So we basically, because we use Excel in terms of creating our course file, it makes us very easy to do a lot of next page affairs in a more tech savvy way. So this gets automatically calculated for us. So just in case if somebody asks us how much of the in the total 40 hours what you have actually taught and how much you have taught for XYZ things. So you can easily, divide things and let people know. This is the course outcome statements that you align, and cognition, you always mention the cognition line with the same. Similarly, you get the learning hours for course outcomes cohesively. Then we talked about CO to PO mapping. That is also seen here. PO learning hours is automatically again derived. Like I told you, the moment you have got CO learning hours and you have CO PO mapping, you can easily derive out the PO or PSO specific learning hours from the same. Give me a minute. Then comes what is the student analysis. Here, the student analysis talks about as to how do you derive bright and weak learners. So for bright and weak learners, we basically take up a BISAT test, which has got 50% weightage, and do take up internal class test. And now the criteria for taking up the first internal class test to acquire bright and weak learners is that we complete our 30% of the syllabus. Post that, we take out the class test, which has a weightage of 20%. Now, this internal class test can become a part of your actual internal, or it can again be an optional thing that gets only involved for the purpose of student learners analysis. And the third one is a subjective criteria, that is teacher's observation, which has got 30% marks. We believe, and here is our teacher's observation rubrics, as you can see. I just highlighted the same. So this teacher's observation rubrics basically has criteria like, over a period of time, a teacher observes a student in terms of discipline, their responsiveness, their involvement in the class, their growth, if they have done any, and communication within the class. So we basically give out marks out of 50, and that gets summated into a 10 marks. Then again, this particular marks which we have derived for the whole class gets here, and then we use this particular formula. With that, we derive out our actual bright and weak learners. So keep setting the targets. As you can see, all the highlighted students are the weak students, and the ones who are not highlighted are the more than average or bright learners of the class. Then we have got attainment targets. So here you keep the targets and the attainments are achieved. Similarly, PO targets are mentioned here. Assessment tools, I think Professor Niyati did talk about assessment tools, how you have to define it with each course outcome. Then COPO mapping is also essentially done on the same lines. You also involve mark list in the same. You do your grade analysis. Course outcome analysis is done. So we whatever is the responses, we involve it in our class, and we go further. Later on, we do take up the attainment course outcome attainments XY, which we just talked about, and that's how we calculate our final course outcome attainment, and which gets converted later on into levels. Similarly, PO attainments are also calculated. Gap calculation is for PO and CO both. And later on, closing the quality loop are the last few pages that you have to actually work upon, wherein you can see target levels are mentioned, attainment levels are mentioned, and then you write your observation whether the target is achieved or whether the target is not achieved. If it is achieved, then what you are basically going to do has to be written in the action plans. Similarly, we do the similar practice for PO attainment statements or PSO statements, and which later on it gets the final documentation gets complete with a certification from the head of the institute. uh, that's how. So this is how we prepare our course file. So coming back to what we just talked about, and but of course once you completely take the printouts of the same, you align these annexures in the same line. So on this note, I would like to stop here, and if there is any questions, do let me know, guys. Any questions from from your end, guys? If not, I have I'm just posting my mail ID just in case if you had like any query, you can always write to me.
Okay, participants are requested to ask the question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself.
Question: who all prepare all these documents, the entire post file with all calculation? Ma'am, faculties, especially the college and institutes who are into the accreditation work, each faculty prepares their very own course file, because the moment I said, the subject is given to you, you are the best person to talk about it. So this is basically a document where, a deliverable that comes with the course number of course given. So basically, it is prepared by each respective faculty for their respective subjects.
I think so, ma'am. No more question.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so we are end to here's today's session. Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session and wonderful presentation regarding the teaching pedagogy based with our outcome based education. Now, I would like to call Miss Shushmita Rajpurohit to address today's vote of thanks. Hand over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good afternoon to one and all. I feel honored and privileged to get the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. I, Sushmita Rajpurohit, on behalf of Chandrabhan Sharma College, convey deep regards and hearty thanks to our honorable guest, Dr. Farheen Ahmed. My sincere thanks to management of Chandrabhan Sharma College and Rajiv Gandhi College of Management Studies for providing such platform to organize 1 week faculty development program on outcome-based education. I'm also thankful to Principal of Chandrabhan Sharma College, Dr. Pratima Singh Madam, and Director of Rajiv Gandhi Rajiv Gandhi Management College, Dr. Dinesh Gabani, for their help and support at various stages. My special thanks to all the resource persons of our 1 week faculty development program. Dr. Radhika Vadare, IQAC's role and importance of outcome-based education, Mrs. Niyati Joshi, role of examination in outcome-based education, Mrs. Vidisha Goswami, digital repository and feedback under outcome-based education, and Dr. Farheen Ahmed, teaching pedagogy under outcome-based education. Today, my words are not enough to express the gratitude to the organizing committee of Chandrabhan Sharma College. I'm very much thankful to all the teaching and non-teaching staff and also the technical team. I feel proud and thankful for making this event successful one. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Good
Thank
luck,
you,
guys. Thank
Shushmita, ma'am. Okay, so participants, now you are requested to fill the feedback form which is shared in a WhatsApp group as well as in the chat box, even as well as it is shared in YouTube link also. So you all are requested to fill the feedback form. Okay, now all participants are requested to raise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जगति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत